Welcome to another Apollo Papyrus episode. I am Aaron Apollo Camp. For this episode, my interview guest has extensive experience building businesses in the American tax return preparation industry and is the author of the book iCompete: How My Extraordinary Strategy for Winning Can Be Yours. His name is John Hewitt, and here's my interview with John. John Hewitt, welcome to Apollo Papyrus.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
What businesses have you been a part of, and what drew you into the tax preparation industry?
Well, I've been part of all of the large tax services in the country and all the national tax services. I started when I was at the University of Buffalo, working at H&R Block part-time. And one of the many blessings in my life is I found out at 20 years old what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I've been involved with H&R Block for 12 years. I ended running 250 offices, and I left to build tax software with my dad. And no one wanted it. We finished the tax software for an Apple computer in 1981. No one wanted it. We got lucky and found a company in Virginia Beach called Mel Jackson Tax Service. Again, the biggest luck there was that the weather's a lot nicer in Virginia Beach than it is in Buffalo. So in 82, I moved my family down to Virginia Beach. We merged our computer company with Mel Jackson. We changed the name to Jackson Hewitt. And today, Jackson Hewitt's a billion-dollar company with over 6,000 locations. And I sold my stock in Jackson Hewitt in 1997. And started Liberty Tax. And Liberty Tax grew to 4,000 offices in the United States and Canada. So I've founded two of the top 100 retail tax chains in the country, H&R Block Jackson Hewitt and Liberty Tax. I also worked 12 years at H&R Block. And now my latest company is I sold my stock in Liberty, and that became a $500 million company. I sold my stock, and now we have ATAX, which is the fastest growing national tax firm in the United States.
In 2016, your book, iCompete: How My Extraordinary Strategy for Winning Can Be Yours, is published. Without spoiling too much of the book, what is it about?
They say that people who are the most successful have made the most mistakes. And so it talks about both the things that I did right and mistakes that I made in growing two companies that have a market cap of $1.5 billion.
Carolyn Castleberry was listed as a co-author of your book. Who is Carolyn Castleberry, and what was it like to work with her on writing your book?
Carolyn is a writer on her own, and I met Carolyn back 30 years ago when I was at Jackson Hewitt over 30 years ago. She was a newscaster on the local news. She was one of the talking heads on the local television station. And they would have every Wednesday, they would interview a guest on some issue about what was going on in Virginia Beach and Norfolk and our area. And I was a guest on her show routinely. Subsequently, she came to work for me. And so her and I collaborated on the book. She had already published, and since then she's published another book. So she's an author and newscaster and celebrity.
Yeah, and Carolyn was a TV anchor in the Virginia Beach, Norfolk, Hampton Roads media market in Virginia, which includes the whole Hampton Roads metro, and then I think places like Dare County in North Carolina.
Yep. It had a good reach it reached into our television market reaches into the northern Carolina, which includes the Outer Banks of North Carolina, a beautiful vacation area.
The publisher of iCompete is Savio Republic. How did you get Savio Republic to publish your book? And is Savio an independent press, hybrid publisher, small traditional publisher, or the imprint of a larger traditional publisher?
Aaron, I have that's a detail I left to my people. I was not involved in that at all. My those kind of things are done by my director of marketing. My director of marketing, Martha O'Gorman's been with me for 35 years. She was with me at Jackson Hewitt, Liberty, and now at Loyalty Brands. So I really didn't get involved in that at all, and that was 10 or 12 years ago.
You're probably the first guest to not really have a close association with the publishing of your book, and I find that fascinating.
Well, thanks, but they say Peter Drucker, my favorite business author, says, and in his book, The Effective Executive, he says, people with great strengths have great weaknesses. And one of my weaknesses is that I'm not a detail person at all. So I'm zero detail. So when I hire people, you hire people when you grow companies or when you build organizations. You look for people that have strengths that are your weaknesses, and so that's just a weakness I have. I'm not a detail person. I'm a big picture thinker and visionary.
You mentioned your biggest weaknesses. What are your biggest strengths?
The uh, I think one thing is that to grow to huge companies, and there's only been 1,000 billion-dollar companies in the United States, and I'm sorry, 10,000, and to grow a company large, you have to have the ability to have a fairly accurate vision, and the most important thing is to get people to buy into that vision. So I've been able to get stockholders, employees, customers, franchisees, vendors, I've been to buy into my vision. So one thing is I'm a good at selling my vision and selling the future. That and secondly, I'm I'm good at listening to people and trying to do what's best for each and every person. So when I meet someone, whether it's a employee, a customer, just someone I meet in conversation, I'm always trying to help that person be the best, do what's best for themselves.
I'm going to pivot back to uh, the publishing side of your book. I do have one more question on that front. Did Savio Republic publish the audiobook version of your book, or did another company do that?
Aaron, I have again. That's a detail that I'm not involved with.
Okay.
I can remember one thing. They asked me if I wanted to be the voice, and I said, absolutely not. I don't want to. I don't want to read hundreds of pages on for hours. So I'm not the voice of it. But no, I don't know. I don't know that fact.
Okay. Um, okay. What was the hardest part of writing a book for you, and why?
Because there was the journey. My journey's been 54 years, and even when I released the book, it had been 44 years of business career, and so there's just so much to tell. And I wanted all of what I talked about to include a lesson. So each chapter includes a pretty unique, I think, lessons that the reader may not have thought about or experienced themselves. So it's an effort to give back, to improve lives. Our mission statement at Loyalty Brands is having fun, improving lives. And so I wanted to improve lives. So it was picking out lessons I learned over the past, and then using my story and my journey to exemplify them.
My next question, this is really my only real political question, although I might have a follow up to this one. Can current politics influence future businesses, and if so, how?
Well, certainly they have major impact on businesses. The uh, government regulation is the the boon or the bane of business. It can be extremely helpful, or it can be extremely hurtful, and it can cause huge industry disruption, or it could cause huge tailwinds that drive business. So it's mostly involved with the regulations that are passed by our legislators.
I do have a follow up question for this because for the current tax filing period that ends April 15th of this year in the United States at the federal level, the IRS is experimenting with running its own free income tax return filing system. And how will the IRS's experimental free filing system impact the tax preparation industry that has been built around the lack of an IRS provided option for many years?
It's well, how many people do you think believe that the IRS is going to do a great job in getting you the lowest tax possible? And um, I'm not a big concern at all about any impact. And there's been free filing of tax returns for there's something called the Free File Alliance that even large companies like H&R Block and TurboTax and uh, Liberty Tax, we offered free tax returns for over 25 years. So you can go online and get many a high percentage of population can go online even before this IRS software and get a free tax return. So it to my they haven't seen the official latest numbers, but rumor is that it's very ineffectual, and not a large number of people are adapting it.
Yeah, because you mentioned a valid point. Not a lot of people are using the IRS's own option because they've been so used to using various filing options from private companies, like companies you founded and or worked for many years. And if the IRS's own in-house system is to succeed, it's already got quite a bit of a headwind because people don't really like to switch to something that switch away from something they're very familiar with and have a favorable experience using unless there's a good reason for it.
Absolutely, there and um, that's to be expected. There are still options today. They're at these large services where you can get, again, a big percentage of the population can get a free return without even using the IRS software. And there's always been free returns in person free returns. The back when I started, back in the 50s and 60s, the IRS, instead of going to tax preparers, the IRS offices did tax returns for free. So people didn't usually go to tax preparers, and then they found that they could save money and or save time by going to a local taxpayer instead of going to an IRS office. And that's how the whole industry started.
Can anyone be an entrepreneur, or does one have to have a certain skill set to become one?
Well, Aaron, I've helped 5,200 people become franchisees, and probably about half of them had never been self-employed before. And what I learned is while two-thirds of our country believe that they want to be self-employed, only about one-third of it can have the wherewithal to be able to do that. They're either not, they're either, some people can't do it that want to do it. And they're either risk averse or they're not self-starters. And when you're self-employed, there's no one telling you to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. I mean, you got to have the gumption to get up and go to do it yourself. And so there's many aspects of self-employment that are more difficult than people think. So no, not everyone that thinks they can.
My final question for this interview: what are some barriers you've had in life, and how have you overcome them?
Well, the barriers that I've had are somewhat external and internal. I think when people ask me, what do you worry about? What keeps you up at night? It's not the competition that bothers me. It's that we execute properly. So it's getting a team of people and executing the program. We've been incredibly successful and had incredible growth in my career at all the companies. Even when I was at H&R Block, they grew from 3,000 to 9,000 locations, and then Jackson Hewitt went from 6 to 6,000, and Liberty went from 0 to 4,000. So we've had incredible growth, and the most difficult part of the growth is getting the right people and having the right culture of the organization. And now, so what I did is we invented this at Jackson Hewitt, and we have our principles, and we write our principles on a pad or have them on pads of paper for all the employees. And everyone gets to criticize or compliment people that follow the principles or violate the principles. And so I'm proud to say that going around the office, you would see people we call them mission moments. And when they received it from another employee, usually they were positive. There were more positives than negatives, but even some people would post both positives and negatives in their office on the wall. And some people just posted the positives, but that's one of the things we did different to make sure that we had a principled organization, because I find that when policies and principles come in conflict, you always should take and be principled rather than some silly policies. So that's one of the things we've done to one of the mistakes I made was letting policies interfere with principle. And we overcame that by focusing on our principles.
John, you were a fascinating guest. I thank you for appearing on Apollo Papyrus.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.
As a point of clarification, the IRS's own online electronic tax filing service was trialed in several states this year, not the entire country. With that said, John was a wonderful guest to interview. This is Aaron Apollo Camp reminding y'all to write and read your passion. Bye for now. Remember to subscribe to the Apollo Papyrus YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/@ApolloPapyrus and the Apollo Papyrus Substack newsletter at apollopapyrus.substack.com. Y'all can visit the Apollo Papyrus website at campaaronapollo.wixsite.com/Apollo Papyrus and follow Apollo Papyrus on Threads, Instagram, Facebook, and Tumblr at Apollo Papyrus. Copyright 2024, Aaron Apollo Camp, all rights reserved. This podcast episode is intended for the private listening of our audience. Any reuse or retransmission of this episode without the express written consent of the podcast host is prohibited, except under fair use guidelines. Royalty-free music and sound effects obtained from https://www.zapsplat.com.